Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and this is my review of Granblue Fantasy Relink, played on PC via Steam. Disclaimer time! I received a review copy of this game at launch. So, this is an interesting one. Granblue Fantasy Relink was announced a long time ago, 2016, I believe. I was intrigued back then, despite having never played Granblue, largely because of Platinum Games' involvement in the reveal trailer. I followed the title over the years, Platinum left, the game went quiet for many years, and I always thought, whenever it did show up here and there, that it looked really cool. And now it is finally here. And I'll point out, I still know virtually nothing about Granblue Fantasy. They did put up the first few episodes of the anime on YouTube, on the official channel, so I watched that whilst waiting for the game. But that's all I know. And if you're like me and you don't really know anything about Granblue, it's a mobile game that started, I want to say 2014, if I'm not mistaken. It had some Final Fantasy talent behind it, and it's been going for 10 years, so it's a pretty popular game. Watching the 7 or so episodes of the anime that they have up on YouTube is a good way to get a introduction to everything. Short version of this review, Granblue Relink was worth the wait. It's a very fun game. The premise is that the player character, the captain, who can either be a man or a woman, depending on which character you pick, and you can change almost at any point in the game between the two characters, Gran and Vegeta. So the captain and the captain's crew come to this new region of the Sky World and get wrapped up in a plot. A plot that is rather like Rise of the Zealot. If you've ever followed a long-running anime like, say, Bleach or Naruto or One Piece, you know how they have movies that aren't strictly connected to the main plot, but a more self-contained, smaller adventure? That's what Relink feels like to me. The game's story is extremely anime and rather cliché in a lot of ways, but it takes advantage of that style and medium with bombastic boss battles that can get very extreme and are always visually exciting. Well, how about the gameplay though? Relink's story is the introduction to the game, takes place over around 9 chapters, consists of large, mostly linear areas that you progress through as you follow the story beats. You'll start off with a party consisting of the captain, who uses a sword and has a variety of support and offensive options. The most skills of any character, I believe, allowing for flexibility. You'll also start off with Rackham, a rapid gunner, Eugen, whatever, a sniper character, Io, a little mage girl who can shoot fireballs and heal. You also have Rosetta, a whip user who can debuff enemies and buff the party, and finally, Catalina, a sword user who can summon what is basically a stand to joint attack with. Along with these characters, as the game progresses you can unlock more characters, up to around 20 of them, with a few more planned to release down the line. The combat is simple enough to get into, with the options for assist modes to make it even easier, but it's got enough depth through customization to keep it fresh, along with the many characters. Almost all of them are really fun to play, in my opinion. But in a nutshell, characters have 3 things in combat: light attack, heavy attack or special attack, and skills. There's often interplay between light and heavy. For example, Catalina's heavy attacks will build up her meter. Once her meter is full, her heavy attacks will use the meter for a powered up version, and all of her skills get powered up. Her heal becomes larger and stronger, her projectile skill will shoot out multiple projectiles, and so on. If you chain the little swordsman Yoda's light attacks and end them with a heavy attack and keep doing this, the combo string will get shorter and shorter until you're eventually able to more or less just spam that powerful finisher over and over. This isn't the case for every character though. Take the spear-wielding Zeta, my favourite character so far. Her heavy attack is actually more like a parry, and instead her light attack chain sends her up into the sky, and if you hit the button at the right time, she can loop this aerial combo and stay airborne for a very long time, as long as you're hitting it right. It's extremely fun. I kinda suck at the timing, but oh well. All in all, the characters are really fun to play. Everyone feels powerful and satisfying and distinct enough in their mechanics, even if a lot of them are, when you boil it down to it, very similar under the surface. You can't swap characters in combat, but outside of combat, you can swap more or less at any time which one that you are controlling. The others will be controlled by AI, in the story. But you do need to have the captain in your party, even if you're not playing as them in story mode. Once you're done with the story, which is around 15-20 hours, you unlock the real meat of the game, the quests that can be done solo, but also in multiplayer. Prior to beating the story, there are some quests outside of the story that can be done, in multiplayer, but there's not really many of them. Between combat, you'll have a few hubs you can go back to and explore, picking up side quests, upgrading weapons, and so forth. Which leads me to my next point. In terms of role-playing game aspects, Granblue has a lot of ways to upgrade your character. You can level them up, of course, then you can go into an upgrade tree where you spend mastery points to unlock new skills, stat boosts, and so on. This mastery tree is very big. Maxing it out for every character can be done, but it would take quite a long time. On top of this, characters can equip weapons, and it's worth getting every weapon for every character. For starters, there's less than a dozen per character, it's around 5 or 6 weapons per character. They all upgrade passive stat boosts just for leveling them up, so even if you are not using the weapon, you still get benefit from leveling it up. And then you have sigils. Sigils are where a lot of the RNG, random endgame, comes from. They are effectively like rings or amulets or armor slots that provide you various important boosts, whether it's damage up, cooldown down, or bringing more potions, along with character-specific ones. There's a lot of grinding you can do to get the best sigils and to level them up and all that sort of thing. You could liken them to jewels and decorations in Monster Hunter as well. The game's visuals are colourful, with beautiful painted clouds which even get their own specific mention in the game's very lengthy credits. The game ran well for me. The game has support for 120 FPS, but I decided to go for a 60 FPS lock, as right now there seems to be some issues where higher frame rates can interfere with certain timings of things, it seems like. I didn't notice any frame dips during my playtime. You can play in Japanese or English, but on the topic of language, well, that's gonna come up in a moment. See, I'm not a huge fan of the game's anime style. There's nothing wrong with it, I just don't really like it. The way the characters look, their designs, and so forth. Catalina's probably my favourite character design in the game, for example, but it drives me nuts that she has both a cape and a butt cape. It just makes rear of her character look overly designed and like bed sheets. And I hate that she has moulded boob plate for some reason. I think that just looks stupid. It's just completely impractical looking. If there's one thing that bugs me about characters who wear armour, one is boob plate, the other is a character having a breastplate that covers the upper half but leaves their stomach completely bare. Why are you wearing armour at that point? If there's two things on your body that you should armour, it's your stomach and your head. Another nitpick I have with the game, the characters talk way too much in combat. It's like you do a single attack and the character reads out a whole sentence. Now I will show you the power of my holy sword that I inherited from my father. But you're attacking 50 times a second, and there's 4 players or characters, so combat is just endless dialogue spam that constantly cuts itself off. It's like the problem that Devil May Cry has, where it's like, sword trick, sword trick, sword trick, royal guard. They really need to cut down on that because it's really silly. But at the end of the day, these are just nitpicks, because Granblue is a really good game. There's a lot of Monster Hunter in it from my perspective, the way you effectively have like a hunter rank that you can increase by doing quests, but it's not called hunter rank. It's very fun. There's a lot of little touches that show the developers cared to put in the effort. For example, every character has a unique sit emote. You don't need to ever sit because, why would you? But not only are these unique for each character, but they took the care to not have the characters clip into the ground most of the time. Like when a character has a cloak or a weapon, they will move the cloak and move the weapon and arrange it so that they don't, melt into the ground, but they lay across it. I like that. The game is full of little touches like that. It shows they care. The game has a little visual novel style segment for each character, which I imagine are inspired by something similar in the mobile game, which again I don't play, where you basically read some backstory chapters for the characters, and in doing so, unlock some stat boosts. And every few chapters or so you'll have a mission that sort of plays into that story and is unique for that character. If nothing else, they're worth it for the stat boosts. Finally, the game's soundtrack is good, I enjoyed it. The upcoming plans for the game state that it has paid DLC on the way, but at the time of writing we have no way of knowing what that'll be. Hopefully it won't be a horrible cash shop like Darktide. But for now at least, the game is content and feature rich, and I feel like it's worth the price. And there's some content which I believe is free coming as well. There's a boss coming and 2 playable characters, and I believe that's all free. The paid content is separate. I would guess that the paid DLC would be, again, like Monster Hunter World. Stickers, emotes, music, maybe some costumes and the like. The game has around 5 colours per character, more the King Premium Edition, but no real costumes, just different colours. There's a few minor exceptions. The main character can swap between 2 variations for each sex, and some characters might be able to put on like a helmet, for example, but from what I understand, Granblue Mobile has a lot of different variants and costumes. If you look up Zeta, for example, it's like 5 different Zetas. So I think it would make sense if some of these make their way in here, different costumes. Anyway, I'm really enjoying Granblue Fantasy Relink, and I think it's worth checking out. If you aren't the type to be big into endgame content or enjoy multiplayer, then you might want to wait a bit, unless you're really after a single player experience right now. But I'll reiterate, the 15 to 20 hour storyline really is just sort of an introduction for the rest of the game in a lot of ways. Once again, kinda like Monster Hunter. But yes, Granblue gets a thorough recommendation from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. If you've any questions about the game, feel free to ask them down below in the comments. Until then, take care.